This is the town of Kandy, the spiritual and cultural capital of Sri Lanka. Here, many historic traditions are preserved. Like any ancient settlement, and this one dates back at least 700 years, its modern streets conceal the ruins of earlier civilizations. Many of these were founded by warlike kings who defended this mountain fortress against invasion for centuries. We know a great deal about the kings of Kandy because they ruled until the 19th century. This lake was built by the last of them before the British took over in 1815. But throughout the world, countless other civilizations have also come and gone, leaving little behind them but puzzles and problems for the archaeologists who probe their secrets.
Only 30 minutes by air from Miami Beach in Florida, Bimini calls itself the gateway to the Bahamas. For tourists, the place is paradise, but for seekers of lost worlds, Bimini may be the site of the most alluring lost civilization of all. Bill Donato believes that beneath these waves is evidence which could prove that Atlantis lay here. A civilization said to have flourished 10,000 years ago, until the seas rose around it and swamped the place forever. In 1926, the American medium Edgar Cayce predicted that the true site of Atlantis would emerge at Bimini in the Bahamas. Cayce sent a follower to look for signs under the sea. In Bimini, he employed a local fisherman, Pastor Bonefish Sam. Sam gave him all the help he could, but at first without success. One day, Sam suggested they should look in a place he'd known about since childhood. They went to the spot.
And he jumped overboard, and when he put his head down like that and raised it up, he'd nearly jump out of the water. He said, "We found it! Here it is, we found it."
Under the sea was an extraordinary formation. Less than 20 feet down, off the northeast of the island, lies a line of rocks. Its size and shape have earned it the name the Bimini Road. Today, Bill Donato is leading a diving expedition. He's convinced that the so-called Bimini Road will one day reveal its secrets and prove that this really was Atlantis.
When you go overboard, the first thing you see is this huge arrangement that looks like a very large underwater pavement with stones intersecting at right angles, dead straight alignments. It's really amazing. It looks very artificial. It doesn't look anything like what the beach rock looks like. I personally think, because of the particular shape, that it is some kind of ancient docking facilities. Every time I see this, it's amazing. It's like I'm looking at something really ancient, really big, and it's impressive. Depending on what angle you look at, you always see something different.
Donato's mission is to collect rock samples. He hopes independent analysis will show that the road is indeed a man-made construction.
Today we were taking samples of the stone, and there seems to be more than one type of stone down there, and on some of the bigger stones it seems to be extremely encrusted, so I'm not sure whether we got what was actually on the inside or on the outside. Also, some of the stone appears relatively soft, other is very hard. I can't see how nature would place these here. Nature would not set them down exactly straight, and it wouldn't have right-angled orientations to it. That just doesn't happen. Especially it wouldn't have equal spacing between them, which is also a feature. I wouldn't just bet all my money or my time and effort that this is Atlantis. I would bet my life that this is Atlantis.
At Britain's Building Research Establishment, Donato's samples from the Bimini Road are prepared for microscopic examination. Thin slices of the stone have been mounted on slides for analysis by Kelvin Pettifer.
Well, it's clearly from the seabed. If we look at the hand sample, we can see marine growths on there. What we see on the upper edge of this sample is a thin section through these marine growths.
Pettifer's examination reveals that the rock is of very poor quality. If anyone had used it to build a road or a quayside, it wouldn't have lasted very long.
This is not a particularly good limestone for pavement work, where heavy wear is to be expected. The individual grains, or the allochems as they're called, are bonded together so loosely and poorly that heavy wear rates could be expected very rapidly especially if wheeled vehicles were being driven down there at all, or animals like horses. No, it would wear very quickly and would not be really suitable for a wearing surface. The evidence, as far as I can see, is that it's not a suitable rock for a road, and makes me believe that this is not a road at all. Atlantis is still a mystery to me. I'd love to believe it. I really would, but this is not conclusive proof as far as I'm concerned.
Atlantis was described by a Greek philosopher, Plato, in 300 BC. He wrote of an island surrounded by channels of water. It lay somewhere beyond the Pillars of Hercules, as the Straits of Gibraltar were known. He described how Atlantis was swallowed up and destroyed by a gigantic flood. Ever since, the mystery of this lost civilization has enfolded explorers, archaeologists, and mystics. Above the Aegean Sea of Plato's homeland, Greece, the dazzling white houses cling to the edge of a sunken volcano. This is all that is left of the island of Santorini today. The islands nearby form the rim of the volcano's crater, or caldera as geologists call it. Santorini is also known as Thera. It lies 80 miles north of Crete, where archaeologists have proved that a great civilization, the Minoan, did once flourish. Tim Druitt is a geologist who wants to get to the bottom of the story. Beneath this landscape of ash lie older and earlier secrets. In 1600 BC, in the Bronze Age, Santorini exploded.
An eruption of this magnitude must have been a truly awesome event, and it's not at all unlikely that it would have been, the memory of it would have been preserved in some kind of legend. The discharge of 30 cubic kilometres of molten rock, at least 3 times larger than the Krakatoa eruption in 1883. So this would have been a truly enormous event, which would have had widespread repercussions in the Mediterranean area.
Volcanic dust lay inches thick in Turkey and settled in the Nile Delta of Egypt. Rivers of hot ash hit the sea. Tidal waves crashed down to swamp the north coast of Crete. It was a cataclysm unequalled in human memory. Druitt and his colleagues have been using ground radar techniques to establish the lie of the land before the eruption of 1600 BC. Under the ash and the volcanic rock, they're drawing a picture of the island as it existed more than 100,000 years before. Druitt's biggest surprise came with the discovery of pumice solidified on top of the old island rock. It was found on a cliff face in the caldera and proved that even before the Bronze Age eruption, these steep cliffsides edged a crater.
At this location, we're situated about halfway down the present-day caldera cliff beneath the main town of Thera. And this layer of pumice, which is from the opening phase of the Great Bronze Age eruption, lies here upon much older deposits. And between these deposits, which are about 100,000 years old, and the Bronze Age pumice is a layer of soil. So we know here that this cliff line must have been exposed and must have existed prior to the onset of the Bronze Age eruption. If we trace this old surface along and we map it geologically, we can in fact show that this ancient cliff line extends to present-day sea level. And so the entire caldera wall here beneath Thera was already in existence in the late Bronze Age. The caldera at that time was flooded, much like the caldera today, and there was also at least one entrance to the sea in the southwest corner.
And it was when Druitt compared his reconstruction of the earlier cliff line with a chart of Atlantis as described by Plato that startling similarities began to appear. A central island surrounded by water, a circular harbour, and even a channel to the open sea.
There are striking similarities between our reconstruction of Bronze Age Santorini, which I stress is made entirely on geological evidence, and the description handed down to us by Plato. Plato describes that the Atlanteans quarried stones of white, red and black in colour, and if we look around the present-day caldera wall at Santorini, we can see typical volcanic rocks, white, red and black. Another similarity is that on the central island of Atlantis, Plato describes springs of hot and cold water. And of course, on the present-day central island, there are hot springs where the warm, volcanically heated water rises to the surface. It's nice to think that one day we may solve the mystery of the Atlantis legend. We can never be sure. In the meantime, if we assume that the legend that Plato passed on to us is indeed describing a historical event, probably the best interpretation we can give on the basis of the archaeological and volcanic evidence is that he was describing the civilization of Minoan Crete and at the same time the greater Bronze Age eruption of Santorini.
The legend of Atlantis is puzzling and beguiling, and one would like to believe that this paradise did once exist. But I'm not convinced by the evidence so far. In my dives around Sri Lanka, I've often seen squared-off slabs exactly like those on the Bimini Road. But they're completely natural. They've been formed by the steady action of the waves over countless generations. And Plato's account is based only on hearsay, suggesting that he was retelling a myth, only loosely based on a real-life event, like the eruption of the volcano at Santorini. Although I'd like to be proved wrong, for the moment, I agree with the expert who concluded that the millions of words written about Atlantis are science fiction and not historical truth.
The tiny island of Malta, midway in the Mediterranean between Europe and Africa, has played host to many civilizations in its 7,000-year history. Stone Age farmers, the temple builders, the Bronze Age settlers, the Phoenicians, the Romans, the Arabs, and the great crusade culture of the Knights of St. John. But with history has come mystery. Away from today's roads lie older, enigmatic tracks, ruts cut deep in the limestone. They seem to start nowhere and lead nowhere. From the sky, they look like a modern railway system. Indeed, this place is called Clapham Junction after Britain's busiest railway station. But these date from long before any railway. Indeed, so ancient is this mystery that archaeologists and historians cannot agree when the tracks were first created. Professor Anthony Bonanno has devoted years to the riddle of the Maltese ruts.
They occur very often in such a great concentration and that they are cut into very hard rock. And then there are some which seem to vanish into thin air. Others are even at the very edge of cliffs, so that someone has actually suggested that some flying objects might have been used. Someone else has even suggested that they were the result of visits from extraterrestrial people. They are so mysterious.
Other archaeologists link the ruts with the temple builders. Bonanno believes they date from Roman times. He made a crucial discovery while researching ancient quarries.
Whenever I managed to trace a quarry, I found cart ruts associated with them. And to explain the great concentration of cart ruts in this place, I proposed that they are actually associated with a huge concentration of quarries in the area.
Bonanno's quarrying theory could explain why so many lines are found in one place. As stonecutters moved along the rock face, each line represents the shortest journey between the quarry and the road. Here, the stone would be carted away to building sites. And Bonanno believes the quarries hold the key to which of Malta's ancient civilizations made the ruts. The clue is in the size of the blocks quarried here.
61 inches by 21 inches. If you look at this whole stretch of rock, you'll find grooves of those same dimensions all over. This is where blocks of that size have been extracted to provide building stone.
And from a wall deep in the Roman foundations of the present-day town Medina, Bonanno finds an exact match for his measurements. This firmly links the quarry at Clapham Junction with the Roman town.
61 inches by 21 inches. This is a typical Roman block with those typical Roman measures. This is the solution to the mystery of the cart ruts. It was the Romans who produced them to carry the stone from the quarry face to the road and from the road to the building site.
Not everyone agrees with Bonanno's theory. This man, Frank Ventura, has walked all over the island investigating the tracks. He believes they're just simple roadways, but for him, the real mystery is what made them. Ventura carried out a detailed study of the ruts at Nasher.
The measurements tell us that the track isn't even, the width of the track isn't even. There can be a difference of about 10 centimeters. So a fixed wheel cart would have stuck in these ruts because the wheels are not that flexible. Another thing is that the shape of the rut itself indicates that it wasn't a wheel with a metal rim. So definitely it wasn't a cart like the Romans used.
The two theorists are preparing for an experiment which they hope will prove which one of them is right. Bonanno with his Roman cart theory, or Ventura with a slide car, a platform dragged on two long poles.
It needs to be very hard because it has to run over the softer rock and form the ruts that we have been seeing. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
They've chosen the beach for the test because the sand will show in a few passes ruts that would take thousands of journeys to gouge from solid rock. Meanwhile, in the cart corner, Professor Bonanno prepares to make his tracks.
I have some trepidation as to whether the wheels will penetrate deeply enough into the sand. But I think in order to show that it really works, it needs to be done hundreds, if not thousands of times over the same rut.
In the event, Bonanno's fears prove justified. As his tracks cross those of the slide car, everyone can see which one makes the deeper ruts. Bonanno is prepared to concede, partially at least. He still believes Roman quarrymen made the ruts, but he will reconsider the cart.
Earlier on, I showed a certain certainty about the purpose of the cart ruts and the vehicle that was used. As far as the vehicle is concerned, I would tend to almost concede you in some way a victory.
Only slowly do ancient civilizations give up their treasures to the archaeologist's trowel. In the 1880s, a workman in Mexico unearthed a colossal stone head, almost 5 feet high. From time to time, over the century that followed, others just as astonishing were uncovered. Gradually, it dawned on the archaeologists that the swamps of Central America concealed one of the great civilizations of the world, the Olmecs.
Above the plains of Mexico, the plateau of San Lorenzo rises like any natural formation. But beneath lie the remains of the Olmec civilization, 3,000 years older than our own. For archaeologist Dan Cyphers, every inch conceals secrets waiting to be uncovered.
The Olmec were a very important civilization, the first civilization, in fact, in Mesoamerica, that really set the pace, established many traditions, and started the whole trend of cultural evolution here. To study the Olmecs is to study America's first civilization.
Bit by bit, in digs across the plateau, she's piecing together a picture of a civilization which is still largely unknown. The greatest day of her working life came here a year before. In a ravine, she made a find she'll never forget. The head she discovered was only the 17th to turn up. Each of them is colossal. Each of them is regarded by artists as well as archaeologists as a masterpiece.
The discovery of the colossal head occurred when we were doing a prospection operation in a ravine, looking for another rock that had been reported. So we never found that rock, but we did find the colossal head.
The head was lifted carefully from its hiding place of thousands of years under the watchful eyes of the villagers. In the village, the men are preparing its new home. It'll be the centerpiece of their own museum. Every other head has been shipped to the capital, but this one is staying here. It's even got a nickname.
They noticed that it looked like somebody that they knew, so they called it Tiburcio.
Today, it's exactly a year since the head was found. Cause for the villagers to celebrate.
I think the most important thing about the colossal heads is that they show an image of a particular person. So even though people in general think a colossal head is a colossal head, that they all have certain similar characteristics, each one is very distinct. The facial features are very, very individual. The eye of this colossal head very clearly shows the Asiatic-style eye fold. It also shows the cross-eyed feature that is visible in almost all the colossal heads. This was definitely a mark of beauty for the Olmec. The eye is slightly sunken here with bags under the eyes representing the fact that this is an older or mature man. The nose of this colossal head is wide and slightly flattened in the center part.
Anne Cyphers believes that each of the heads represents a ruler. Not only does each have a different face, but a different headdress too.
This device that comes down the center of the head is a claw, 3 digits, like this. Here you can see the nails, the claws themselves. This probably represents the name of the ruler. Even though the Olmec didn't have writing at this point, these are the kinds of symbols that identify the person represented here.
Some people think the features suggest the Olmecs came from Africa, but Anne Cyphers disagrees. She thinks the faces portray the Asiatic features of the American Indians, who first came to the continent over the Bering Strait, which links Asia and North America.
The lips vary from head to head, and the nose too. In my opinion, however, I don't think these are African features. I think that what predominates in the heads are Asiatic features. For example, the eye fold on the colossal head is a clearly Asiatic eye fold. So I think, in my own view, that we're not talking about diffusion from another continent to explain the rise of Olmec civilization. Olmec civilization arose here in southern Veracruz. There's really no words to explain the feeling that you get when you see for the first time a face that nobody has seen for 3,000 years. It's just a thrill that cannot be repeated.
These stories show how hard it is to reconstruct the histories of civilizations that have flourished and died centuries ago. So it's not surprising that some cranks resort to outrageously implausible theories, often invoking aliens from outer space. How insulting to our ancestors to think that they were incapable of sculpting those noble Olmec heads. Even though their reasons may be inexplicable, we can be sure that human beings, just like us, were the creators of these great works.